Hey guys, so we are down south of Albuquerque at Fort Stanton, and I got to tell you, there is a lot of history that has happened on this campus. Let's go find out everything that's going on here. All right, so Fort Stanton, this is huge, and it looks so different. Just looking at here, it doesn't look like we're in New Mexico.
Right.
So tell us a bit of history about this. First of all, when was Fort Stanton established?
Fort Stanton was established in 1855, right along the banks of the Rio Bonito that you see right over there. If you look at some of the buildings, you'll find that they're rock construction. Those buildings were actually here in 1855. Wow. But we have so many eras represented in the buildings. If you look out across the parade ground like this here, you'll notice there's rock buildings, there's adobe buildings, there's frame buildings, there's concrete buildings. Each one is an era within the fort.
So that's why we see so much different types of architecture, is it was just repurposed and built up.
Absolutely. Okay. Many additions. I mean, the way we see these buildings here right now is not the way they were originally built. But as, say, the tuberculosis hospital that took over in 1899, they put a lot of money into rebuilding a lot of these buildings and repurposing them. And then further on down the line, we got new buildings throughout. Some of the old ones were demolished, some were built as new. So you get lots of different architecture here.
Gotcha. So when we come out here and we're talking in terms of the historic value of Fort Stanton, why is it important for us, first of all, to honor it and also to preserve it for not just New Mexico history, but U.S. history?
Fort Stanton is one of the best preserved forts there is, especially here in New Mexico. Most of them out there were built of adobe, and they've just melted away over time. We have an example of that at Fort Selden, where the adobe buildings, once they were abandoned and not cared for, they just fell in upon themselves. Here, this fort was always used for something, and therefore all the buildings are still here. And it's important to show that this history is so long, that so many entities use this, that it's still important to New Mexico and the country as a whole.
So these walls, what you were saying, if we do a pan here, looking at all these walls, we get the complete history of Fort Stanton.
The complete history, all 160 years right here.
All right, so break it down for us quickly, how that is,
all right,
how that happens.
Right here we have the original exterior wall of this building being the officers' quarters, 13. Okay. In 1861, the Army abandoned it because they were afraid the Confederates were going to invade. Well, the Confederates did invade. But before the Federal Army abandoned it, they burned the place to the ground. And it was noted that there was hardly a usable building. And this right here is an example of that destruction. This rock wall is gone. They just destroyed it. In 1866, they rebuilt the fort. They used adobe to do that, which is really kind of strange. So then after that, in future, or at that time, future expansion, they put this wall and made a kitchen on the back side of the officers' quarters. Wow. And here we have an old doorway that originally was done in 1887, that somewhere after that, they walled back up. As we move farther down the wall, we'll see stucco and plaster and paint and layers upon layers upon layers.
Yeah, and you can see when you look, I mean, this is deep. It's hard to see from home, but I mean, it is very deep.
So you've got 160 years of history right here in 20 feet.
Wow.
It's
and
just
then, of course, behind us.
Right. And in 2006, they did some preservation efforts trying to keep the ceiling from falling in.
That's great.
Yeah, there's so much history encased in one tiny little room.
Yeah.
And I just can't wait to show this off to my visiting public.
So for more information on Fort Stanton and the New Mexico Culture Pass, head over to Casa.com, click on the Style tab, and you know what? Come on out to the sites themselves and explore history where it happened.